Let's turn the clock back 100 years and step onto the streets of New York City in 1925. A century ago, this is the fastest, loudest, most electric city in the world, and it's racing toward the sky. It's the age of jazz and skyscrapers, of speakeasies and dreamers, all crowded onto a few narrow islands. Nearly 6 million people live here, packed from the mansions of Fifth Avenue to the tenements of the Lower East Side. It's a city being built upward, faster than anywhere on Earth, in a decade that roars. This is New York, 100 years ago. Let's take a look around. The first thing that stops you dead is the skyline, already rising higher than any city has ever climbed. Steel-framed towers shoot up story after story, and the streets below fall into deep, shadowed canyons. The tallest of them all is the Woolworth Building, a soaring cathedral of commerce crowned in stone. Everywhere you look, new towers are climbing, wrapped in scaffolding and ringing with rivets. High above the streets, ironworkers stroll along narrow steel beams, hundreds of feet up, with no safety line at all. And this is only the beginning. The great race to build the tallest tower is about to explode. Within just a few years, the Chrysler and the Empire State will pierce the clouds above this very city. New York in 1925 is a city reaching for the sky and utterly convinced it can touch it. For millions, the journey to this city began with one unforgettable sight out in the harbor. The Statue of Liberty, torch raised high, the first thing weary travelers saw after weeks at sea. Just beyond her stands Ellis Island, the great gateway where new arrivals were checked and let through. For decades, millions of immigrants poured through here, from every country in Europe and beyond. Just last year, though, harsh new laws slammed that door nearly shut, cutting the flood to a trickle. But those who came before built whole neighborhoods, each with its own language, food, and faith. New York is the great melting pot of the world, and you can hear it in a dozen tongues on every block. Moving through this crush of humanity means diving underground into the roaring New York subway. For a nickel, you're swept beneath the city in a packed, rattling train, faster than any street could carry you. Where the subway doesn't reach, the elevated railway, the L, thunders overhead on iron stilts. Down at street level, it's chaos. Motor cars, taxis, trucks, and trolleys all fighting for room. The very first traffic signals are appearing, trying to bring some order to the madness of the crossings. Horse-drawn carts still rattle down the side streets, delivering ice, coal, and vegetables each morning. And around the island, ferries and tugs crowd the busiest harbor on the entire planet. It is a city in perpetual, deafening motion, 24 hours a day. But step off the grand avenues, and you find how most New Yorkers really live, in the tenements. These are tall, crowded brick buildings, where whole families squeeze into one or two dark little rooms. On the Lower East Side, they are packed together more densely than almost anywhere on Earth. The streets below are a roar of pushcart markets, selling everything from pickles to pots and pans. Washing hangs on lines strung between the buildings, and children play in the crowded, noisy streets. It is hard, poor, and cramped, and yet it is bursting with life, ambition, and hope. For these families came here believing that in New York, anything at all was possible. Now, there's one strange law hanging over the whole roaring city. Alcohol is completely illegal. This is prohibition, and across America, making or selling a drink is against the law. But nowhere ignores it quite like New York, which hides tens of thousands of secret bars. These are the speakeasies, tucked behind unmarked doors, where you whisper a password to get inside. Bootleggers smuggle in the liquor, gangsters grow rich and dangerous, and the drinks never stop flowing. In smoky back rooms, the cocktails are poured and the music plays on, later and louder every night. The city that never sleeps has simply decided that the law does not apply after dark. And rising above it all is a brand new sound, pouring out of the clubs and into the streets: jazz. Up in Harlem, in the north of the city, something extraordinary is happening in these very years. A great flowering of black music, writing, and art is underway that history will call the Harlem Renaissance. In its famous clubs, dazzling bands play hot jazz to packed and dancing crowds every single night. Musicians who will become legends are making their names here, and the whole world is starting to listen. Poets, writers, and artists are giving voice to a new pride and a new energy, block by block. Harlem in the 1920s is one of the most exciting places in the entire world. Downtown, another kind of light blazes into the night, the electric glow of Times Square. They call it the Great White Way, where giant illuminated signs turn night into dazzling day. Along Broadway, the theaters are packed for musicals, comedies, and glittering variety shows. Vaudeville still fills the stages with singers, dancers, comedians, and every kind of act imaginable. And the movies are exploding. Grand picture palaces show silent films to enormous, spellbound crowds. Very soon, those silent pictures will learn to talk and change entertainment forever. New York is the capital of the show, and by night, it shines brighter than anywhere on earth. All of this dazzle is fueled by money, and money in America now flows through one street above all. Down at the tip of the island runs Wall Street, the beating heart of the nation's wealth. The stock market is booming as never before, and fortunes seem to be made overnight. Ordinary people are pouring their savings into stocks, certain the good times will never end. Along Fifth Avenue rise the mansions of the fabulously rich, dripping with marble and gold. It is an age of dizzying wealth, confidence, and spending, with seemingly no limit in sight. But beneath the boom, a terrible reckoning is coming, though almost no one can see it yet. In just 4 years, this roaring market will collapse and take the whole world down with it. For now, though, New York is determined to have the time of its life. The young and daring, the flappers, bob their hair, raise their hemlines, and dance until dawn. At glittering parties, straight out of a Gatsby novel, the champagne and the jazz never stop. Out at Coney Island, millions escape the heat on the beaches and the roaring wooden roller coasters. And across the river, a new temple of sport has risen. Yankee Stadium, the house that Ruth built. There, the mighty Babe Ruth swats home runs into the crowd and becomes the most famous man in America. In 1925, New York plays as hard as it works, and it works harder than anywhere else. In everyday life, the newest wonder crackles in the corner of the parlor: the radio. Families gather round to hear music, news, and comedy carried invisibly through the air. On the streets, newsboys shout the headlines, selling papers from a dozen roaring dailies. For a quick bite, you can drop coins into the wall of an automat and a hot meal pops out behind glass. But there is no free health service, and in the crowded tenements, disease still spreads fast. The gap between the penthouse and the tenement has never been wider than it is right now. And yet, up and down the island, nearly everyone believes their moment is just about to arrive. That belief that anything is possible here is the truest thing about New York. So New York in 1925 is a city of towering dreams and roaring contrasts all at once. Skyscrapers and tenements, jazz and prohibition, vast fortunes and desperate poverty, side by side. It is young, brash, electric, and absolutely certain that the future belongs to it. As night falls, a million lights blaze on, and the towers glitter against the dark like a wall of stars. From a Harlem club drifts the wail of a saxophone, and a subway train rumbles deep beneath the streets. In a Lower East Side tenement, a family gathers close around the crackling radio, And under that same glittering sky, people laugh and worry and dream and hope exactly as we do. The very same hearts as ours, beating 100 years ago in the heart of New York. That was New York, a century back. Next time, we'll cross the ocean to another great city. Paris, 100 years ago, the city of art, cafes, and light, in its own roaring 20s. But that's a journey for another time. If you're enjoying these journeys through time, please subscribe and come along, and every like, comment, and share truly helps this channel grow. Thanks for traveling back with me, traveler. Rest easy, and we'll rewind again soon.